Greetings and hope you're well. As you know, I've been writing regularly about the inner game creating the outer game. And when we talk about inner game, we are talking about the shift from the default mind being habitual to intentional mind. And the next shift is no mind intelligence. Most people reading my writings, they immediately understand the first move from default to intentional. However, the move from intentional to no mind intelligence is not that clear. First of all, when we move from intentional mind to no mind intelligence, we do not lose our access to intellect or thinking. We simply complement that with another source of intelligence. So I wanted to clarify that as I read the comments on the LinkedIn, this seems to be an area of not clear understanding. Intellect and analytical thinking is not the only source of information we have access to. And what is important is to access this other source of information that I'm going to be talking about, especially in times of rapid change such as now, when people or leaders want to decide about a solution. By the time they go through the analytical process of analyzing the situation, critically investigating the solution, conceptualizing it, and then sequentially implement it, the situation has already changed. So we need another source of information that is agile, instant, and spontaneous. So that's what I'm arguing about. So let's look at a few writings. Robert Kegan, a psychologist at Harvard University, talks about stages of adult development, and the last three stages applies to adults are socialized mind, when people get a script from society, and no matter how inauthentic that is, they continue living their life and almost never stepping out of that stages of adult development. 60% he recognized remain at this stage. The next stage is self-authoring. At that stage, adults recognize what their values are, what their purpose in life is, so create a life that is authentic in alignment with their deepest desires. He recognizes 30% of the adult going through that stage. The ultimate stage, he calls it self-transforming. Only 1% access this highest stage of adult development. What is remarkable at this stage is adults become conscious and aware of their thinking process. So that which was at one point the subject, thoughts, become the object of observation, of awareness. So we can see another intelligence has stepped in and is observing the thought process. So thought process is still there, but kind of finds its proper place, is no longer dominant force in the consciousness. Moving to Bob Anderson, in his book Mastering Leadership, he talks about leaders going through 5 stages. By the way, these two are very well connected. They know each other very well. And Bob Anderson has studied Robert Kegan's theories. So highest stage of leadership development, as per Bob Anderson, he talks about oneness or unity consciousness. At this level of development, the leaders are connected with something much bigger than their personal thought process. So they open up to an intelligence that guides them, and that intelligence speaks to them through insights and intuition, which are sudden flashes of intelligence, no thinking involved. Again, what makes that important is in present complexity in the world, if we only use intellect, intellect goes through specific stages, analyzes the situation, passes a judgment, conceptualizes it, and then goes through sequential implementation. So you can easily recognize by the time we come up with a solution through analytical thinking, the world has already changed, the situation has already morphed into a new situation. Therefore, while still using the analytical critical thinking, as I say, it is necessary but is insufficient, we need another form of intelligence that is agile, insightful, holistic at once. So what is that? That's what I call no-mind intelligence. So no-mind is not dumb or dull. It's highly, supremely intelligent. However, it uses a different form of intelligence than what we've been taught at school, analytical, critical thinking. Rumi, the poet of love, he said actually that his poems would be downloaded into him. He would not sit down and analyze or use analytical thinking to produce such magnificent poetry. Similarly, Mozart, he would say that his masterpieces were downloaded into him at once, spontaneously, and then the job was to use the analytical critical thinking and produce them. Equally, Einstein has talked about this other form of intelligence. He'd said that the intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors servant and has forgotten the gift. Nikola Tesla, the great inventor, he said his inventions and designs were revealed to him in a vivid vision or flashes of insight, receiving inspirations. He said, quote, "I don't think, I just put down what comes." End of quote. Besides poets, besides musicians, besides inventors, even artists talk about that. For instance, Beatles hits such as the song Yesterday, according to McCartney, came to him in a dream. So he was not using analytical critical thinking. So basically, there is ample evidences that there is another form of intelligence. Unlike analytical critical thinking, is not sequential, it doesn't take time, is sudden, in flashes of insight, and the whole thing is revealed. Then analytical critical thinking is used as a tool to give it a structure. I want to share a personal experience. So there was a program, I'm not sure about now at the moment, in Canada, in Surrey, a town about 1.5 hours from British Columbia, by a scientist that calls himself a mad scientist. So I spent a week at this place. So basically the procedure was in the morning. We would have all these electrodes connected to our head, and then we would be connected to a computer inside a chamber that was dark and no sound, so no stimulation for the senses. And then we would go through a procedure to move our brain from beta waves, which is busy thinking, to alpha waves, which is relaxed thinking. And by the way, that's where a lot of creative ideas and inspirations flow. So one day I was practicing, doing the usual practices inside the chamber, dark chamber. Suddenly my heart literally lit up with warmth, and I saw this light inside of the dark chamber. And for a few seconds, all thinking stopped, and I was basked in this feeling of deep, deep love, warmth, bliss, undescribable. And then, because I haven't had control over my mind, the mind slowly crept in, and he said, "Light in a dark chamber? How is this possible? Cam, are you going crazy?" And I lost the experience. So after a few hours, I moved to the next room where all these brain waves have been recorded. And there it was, delta waves. Delta waves do not include analytical or critical thinking. So basically, we do have access to these altered states that still very, very rich and insightful, but are not within the analytical, critical, beta or alpha thinking. So what I'm trying to say is there exist such experiences, and you might say, well, Cam, that was unique about you and that program, what has it got to do with us? If you read the same scientist's book, I can't recall what the book was, but if you ask, I'll find it out. He mentions that every single human being, every single night, goes through this delta waves, that there are no thinking and yet is very rich. The task is to go through the delta waves intentionally, like what happened to me in that chamber, being aware that you are in the delta waves and there are no thinking. So I was curious, and I went to, so one of the coaches there guided me to a notebook that people had signed about their experiences. So I wanted to know what other people experience in those dark chambers. It blew my mind. People had experiences that are beyond imaginations, such as seeing angels. I know it sounds crazy, and I thought that was crazy too. But, well, there you are. Everything was recorded by computer, all the brain waves, and the evidences were there. I myself had a few experiences of delta waves, delta states. No thinking, no mind, yet highly intelligent. So what does that lead me with? Some people get access to these higher intelligences. I love to call them higher intelligences spontaneously. It happens, but it's rare. For most of us, it's a practice. So we need to have daily practice. Myself, every morning, as soon as I wake up, my mind is totally clear and blank. So I use that first 10 minutes as much as I can to stretch that space, that time. It used to be 2 minutes. Now that no thinking stretches to 10 minutes. Then I go and water the trees and sit under the trees. And then that's where my mind becomes quiet. My breathing naturally falls to my abdomen. And I'm visited by insights. So most of what I've written in the last book and the book prior to that, and the thoughts that, insights that I share with you on those articles on LinkedIn, I never sit down to say, okay, let me think about something to write. It never happens like that. They arrive, they arise, so however you want to call them, and then I go back and use my analytical, critical thinking to give it a structure to make it in the form of an article. So I have daily experiences of that, moving what I call to alpha state. I know it's alpha state because I did that 1 week training and I know its qualities. So it is definitely accessible. However, one need to have a daily practice. And moving to that state is exceptionally intelligent, You don't lose your analytical intellect or intentional thinking. You simply augment that, complement that. I'm not sure how you receive this. I hope this makes sense. And if you have any questions, I'd love to see them on the LinkedIn. All the best. Thank you.